Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, no one ever really sets out to make history. It kind of just happens. But when the elements are there, you can see it. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion, because that's kind of how we do, how we like to do things around here. And if you like how we do things, I'm assuming you do. You're listening to us right now. We'd love it if you'd subscribe to the podcast. You can find us basically wherever you find your podcasts. Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, it's all good. And plus, every single one of our episodes is archived over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. And if you could follow us there too, that'd be great. You can follow us on social media too, for all sorts of updates. It's important, you know. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at either In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of updates. And finally, and I say this a lot, but it's true, because it's my baby, but I love it, and there's a lot of people working hard at it. But please visit us at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest movie news, reviews, some television, some stuff from festivals, video on demand, basically anything and everything the moving image has to offer, because that's what we love writing about it and talking about, and we love it when you read about it. So please do us the kindness and come on by and pay us a visit. We got a good one on this episode. I'm just telling you now, this is a good one. It's the one you've been waiting for. It is part of Hot Docs, but it is all, which is running till May 9th over at hotdocs.ca, but it is hitting all major VOD platforms this coming Friday, May 7th, and it is Street Gang. The story of how we got to Sesame Street. Brand new documentary from director Marilyn Agrello, and it basically gives us the history and the lore of this iconic show, which has been plugging away for so very long and created so many memorable characters and influenced not just a generation, but generations of young people. And we got the distinct pleasure to sit down with a couple of producers from the film, Trevor Crafts and Ellen Scherer Crafts, about how they got involved with the film, the making of, sort of the research process therein, and the legacy of Sesame Street, which is one of those things that I don't think can be stated enough, because it's such a seminal piece of pop culture history that we definitely have to give it its reverence, and I think this film does that and then some. But I cannot recommend this film highly enough. It is fantastic. Go check it out either at Hot Docs or on your favorite video on demand platform this coming Friday. But first, enjoy our talk with Trevor and Ellen, because I'll tell you, I know that I did. Well, I mean, first off, obviously, just congratulations on the film. Like, I absolutely loved it. I guess my first question is just, walk me through the idea of, like, what kicked off the idea for you guys to be involved in the film? Because, I mean, we've seen ones about, obviously, Carol and other sort of players in the whole universe of Sesame Street, but never one that really got into the nuts and bolts history and legacy of Sesame Street.
Yeah. I mean, our company, Macrocosm, is really all about building worlds. We have original IP, and we also show the worlds that have been built. And many moons ago, I like to joke, in 1865, when we started this project, I had actually come across Michael's book, and I was a Sesame Street kid growing up, and Ellen was too. And so it was, I think I was just so struck by what we didn't know. But I was pretty sure this had been done. It had been covered. I mean, Sesame Street, for heaven's sake. It's like, of course, there's been a doc about Sesame Street. But what there hadn't really been was a doc about the people that made Sesame Street.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what I was so amazed by with Michael Davis's book was just, I didn't know about John Stone. I'd never heard of John Stone before. And I was like a super fan. So, of course, I know everything about everything. And I didn't know about John, and I didn't really know about Lloyd, and I knew a little bit about Joan, maybe, but, I knew about Jim, but, there was so much that I didn't know. So I handed the book to Ellen and I said, I think this could be something that is not just about Sesame Street, but I think it could be about something a lot bigger.
And I agreed. I love Michael's book, and it's a very comprehensive book around the history of first 40 years. First 40 years. That's amazing to even say, right?
This
Yeah.
As they're
past that now.
heading into the 52nd season next year. It's amazing. But it was all the things that Trevor said. And in particular, I was so drawn to the story of Joan Gans Cooney as this pioneering female television executive who created essentially, created something that had never been done before. But also it was about this idea that this was a revolutionary idea to use the medium of television and Madison Avenue techniques because kids were remembering beer commercials, and seeing if you could use television to teach children. And then to further understand that Joan was motivated by the civil rights movement and wanted to ensure that children of color who were living in inner cities, where there was a schism in educational opportunity due to racism and poverty. And she wanted to ensure and put tools together that the show was also going to help and reach those kids. I didn't know that. And I was so drawn to that story. And I thought that if we didn't know it, that audiences wouldn't know it either, and how important it was to highlight that these incredible people coming together with this common purpose to do good in the world for children. And I just love the message of it. And we thought the audiences would have as well.
Oh, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. Now, I mean, I'm a bit of a nerd, especially when we're watching a film like this. And I mean, I'm struck at just sort of the archival and sort of the footage and sort of getting everything together. I'm kind of curious, like, walk me through do you have to like make calls and start digging with various people, or is there like some sort of mystical Sesame Street library somewhere where everything is and you just have to dive into it?
Yeah, whether they like it or not, I've often likened Sesame Street to like the Declaration of Independence. That nobody ever thought the Declaration of Independence was going to be a document that lasted for as long. The founders of the United States were like, it's a piece of paper. I'm just going to write it, and it's vellum, and it's fine. Some of that was true of the early Sesame Street too. It was a public television experiment that Joan knew that they were going to be able to do 2 seasons because that's how much money they had money for 2 seasons. And that's how much they thought they were going to go. So there was a lot that's not around from those very, very early seasons. Oh, wow. And also we weren't doing behind the scenes footage the way we do now for every single production, or iPhoning every single moment of our lives. So when we came across the footage, which we like to call the DiNapoli footage, which was shot by an art director named Victor DiNapoli, who was part of the crew, and he had started shooting this documentary in 1981, it was like the gold beyond the platinum, the diamonds, all of it all together. And that actually all came from Sesame Workshop. And they had acquired it a couple of years before we had started the documentary. So it was really good timing. And it was a lot of it. There was 16 hours of footage that we were able to sort of go through and dig through and find these amazing gems. But that only gets you so far in terms of, you can't base all of your whole documentary around this one piece of footage. And that all goes to Rich Remsburg, who is our archival producer.
Yeah.
Who's like a superhero.
Rich is amazing, and I will also, we'll talk about Rich in a minute, but the other thing too is that, when we were approaching our subjects who we wanted to interview for the film, it was a lot of, do you have any boxes in the basement or, is there anything in your attic that you haven't looked at in 50 years? Can we take a look at it? And there was some of that. There was a bunch of that. There was a bunch of that we literally got people's memories and were able to look through. And, Sesame Workshop found out about us getting the film when we optioned the rights for the book from Michael Davis. And they invited us to talk about what our intention was. And then they gave us access to their archival. So again, but it was a lot of, they have an archivist on staff now, but this is 50 years worth of things that, hasn't always been cataloged. So there were a lot of boxes to go through of photos. We got to go to Kaufman Studios where they're currently shooting the show. And I like to tell this story that I got, we were in the green room and there's there's even some boxes in the green room. And I went in
the closet,
and I'm looking at headshots of Roscoe Orman with different hair, he was trying on different types of hair. And I was like, this is amazing, but we really have to thank Rich Remsburg, archival producer, who just found amazing stuff that was really of the time, which was so critically important to us, that we wanted people to feel that moment in time and what it was like to be in the world at that point and to be creating the show. And so he found this amazing, Seeds of Sesame footage from Canada,
CBC,
from the Canada Broadcasting System, and he found this amazing ABC footage from the US over, when the show was airing in Mississippi, and there were controversies at the time. And then he also found this incredible PSA that was really the inspiration for John Stone in how he wanted to create the street, which was called Take Your Kids to the Ghetto. And it was really obviously a tongue-in-cheek PSA around just what was going on in these, inner city urban neighborhoods and what kids were dealing with. And when John saw that, he said, I want to build this street to look like that, because this will connect with the audiences that we want to reach.
But that's the struggle of like an archival producer is, okay, somebody said something in an interview from 1981. Now you have to find that thing.
Yes.
And a random PSA, it's not like you're like, oh, I'm going to go find a scene from Gone with the Wind.
Right.
That's an easy job, and it took a full 3 years for us to track that piece of footage down, get it through all the different steps, and get it. There's only one copy of it in the whole world, and get it licensed and get it, brought to the film. I mean, that's the kind of stamina that it takes to bring a heavily archived documentary to the world, because there's a lot of digging.
Yeah. That was a brilliant one. And I'll just share one of my other favorite pieces of archival was that Rich found the original want ad that Fran Brill responded to audition for Jim Henson in the paper. And that's in our film. I mean, this is, again, talk about like a moment that she mentions in an interview, and then he finds the actual classified ad. Is amazing.
Ellen lost her keys once. That's the only thing Rich didn't find of all the things we asked him for.
Darn it.
And I mean, that's wild, because I mean, especially given sort of the timing of it all. I mean, I can imagine you were dealing with some film elements as well. And I mean, it's not like these were in environmentally controlled vaults. You were finding them in boxes and attics and closets, and it's a Herculean job to even just determine if it's good enough to be able to use it.
Yeah, I mean, even the footage that we got from the workshop that was, the DiNapoli footage, I mean, the box came to us in, the original 16 millimeter reels with the sound tape separated and unmarked, so you've got the foot, because it was just a box that was in the archive. They had it digitized at one point in time, or it got transferred to beta, or, it's like, you're talking about multiple old generations of television, the 2-inch tapes, this is some real deep archive here into the origins of television. And so, that process alone is very time consuming, and making sure that that also the original quality of the media that you're pulling it off of obviously doesn't get degraded while you're doing it, because it's museum stuff.
We actually had to go to the University of Southern California to their film lab to get some stuff like transferred, because they only had the machine that could do this particular kind of tape.
Yeah.
So it was like that.
Umatics and all this, archive, like
I've got to imagine there aren't that many 2-inch machines working.
There's not. It's true. There really aren't. And that's an interesting thing for just our filmmaking community and our society as a whole. I mean, that's why the film archives at USC is such an amazing place, and other film archives are so important, because it's not just about being a warehouse of stuff. It's also like having the machines that will constantly break down, and how many more of them are we going to have? It's like it's a really unique world.
No, I mean, something else that I really appreciated about the film is, I think you mentioned it just about sort of the controversy around airing in Mississippi, sort of in the early days. Because, I mean, in 2021, we think of Sesame Street as common as putting milk on your cornflakes. But I love that the film really highlighted that, no, this was strange. What they were doing was very revolutionary and very groundbreaking. And kind of how important was it for you guys to sort of hammer home the fact that at the time, this was weird?
I very important, because again, that was their intention. And I think, they knew that they could run into people that weren't going to be okay with that. The street was designed to have a Black family, husband and wife, that owned their brownstone on the same street as the white swinging bachelor Bob, and a bird, a giant yellow bird, and a grouch that was in a trash can. But that was intentional. It was intentional because this was showing that this was, an integrated neighborhood of whites and blacks living together. And that had never been done before in the way that it was done. And that was John Stone's part of his, his intention and the show's intention as a whole. But yeah, and it didn't go well in the South in the 60s, but there was, and you'll, not to give it too much away for folks who haven't seen the film, but you will see how that plays out. And we were so incredibly fortunate to find that footage because it talks to, what was happening then, but we also can draw a lot of parallels to the world today. We know that these things that they began to address back in 1969 are certainly not solved, and that we have to continue to look at our framework and how we're viewing things and make sure that we're examining it, because this whole idea of representation and that's what the show did from the very beginning, and it's what it continues to do to this day, and it's what we know. Sonia Manzano mentions in the film that growing up, she didn't see herself on television or people like her on television. And when you don't see yourself on television in a society, you feel like you don't matter and you don't exist.
For sure.
So, and that's something that we in media and entertainment have to continually put that lens back on ourselves to ensure that we are being representative of all people.
Yeah. And Dave, I'm glad you asked, because I think also it's, it was really important for us to show it because they showed it. And you think about it from the lens of, it's very simple for us to sort of see it all occurring now, but it was on a kids show that they did all of this. This is the first interracial cast living on the same street in television history on a kids show. And you start adding that funny little ending phrase of on a kids show to whatever it is that Sesame did, like incredible improv satiric comedy on a kids show, and you start adding all of these extra elements.
Researchers developing curriculum
on a kids show. It's like, it's this simple idea of finding an audience at a period of time in their life when they're probably the most open to new ideas, and then showing the world that you want it to be, and they're going to carry that with them forever. And I think that's one of the amazing things that we wanted to remind audiences about, because we forgot this story. We forgot how Sesame Street was made and how it was so different.
I think it helps us appreciate the now of it as well.
Yeah.
To really remember that it's mission-driven television for the betterment of kids and helping parents with tools to talk to their kids about difficult things and also learn the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s. Right.
And you need to fight for that. That's something that doesn't just come naturally. We all need to strive towards that. And if our doc is, able to have people remember that and apply that to their own life or their own creative endeavors to really strive for a better place, I think that's, for us, that would be the amazing win.
Well, and I think that comes through. And something else that really comes through is just, especially in talking to everyone that you talk to, everyone seems very much proud and very much at peace with the legacy of Sesame Street. Because, when you do these historical docs in the past about shows or pop culture things, there may be people who be like, oh, that was then, I don't want to talk about that. Everyone wants to talk about Sesame Street. Everyone's proud of Sesame Street. And I'm kind of curious, as you were going through talking to all your subjects, like, was there anything that surprised you or caught you off guard? Just because the passion that they all kind of talk about their years on the show really does come through in the film.
I think, Chris Surfs isn't in the film. Chris was a writer and he was a brilliant parody music composer. And he says that they really were a family. And, people who worked on the street, funny way to say it, but people worked on the street, they worked there for years, decades, multiple decades. Still do. And, there's people who you can easily find people that have been there for 20 plus years. And there's an alumni network of people who used to work there that still stay in contact with each other because they're so connected and so proud of the work that they did and had found their community of people that had this higher purpose and connection. So yeah, they definitely, so for me, but Chris said it was a family. And then when we started to interview people and we met, we talked to crew, we talked to cast, we talked to Muppeteers, we talked to, the people, the writers and educators, it was a family and it continues to be a family. And there is that connection there. And you don't really think about that around creating a show, or even in business, right? I mean, you have close coworkers that you work with, but you maybe see them in the context of work. These are people that were really comprehensively in each other's lives and continue to be so. And that was really extraordinary.
They all gave a lot of their lives to produce Sesame Street in whatever capacity that they had to do it. And I think that's the other part. No one was like, oh, I got to go to work today. It was like, I can't wait to get back there and do more. And, you don't, like Frankie Biondo, the cameraman, he shot the pilot. He still shoots a show. It's 50 years. What business anywhere?
Yeah.
Forget about entertainment, because you're like, there for like 10 minutes and then you're on to your next project. But any business for 50 years, Carol was Big Bird for 50 years. It's like this is a place that you never want to leave, and we certainly experienced that working with the workshop. I mean, even the current employees, many have been there for quarter century, just, because what else is better than entertaining kids, and making the world a better place at the same time. So come on.
And I mean, it's one of those things, especially these days in the media landscape, how it's so fast, and we're consuming probably more than ever. There isn't a show or really anything sort of in the visual medium that has the legacy that Sesame Street does. And I'm kind of curious, how important is it from your perspective just to be able to sort of cement something? Because again, we don't want to lose these things. It's important to sustain these things, to sort of understand what got built out of it, because there's so much stuff that owes a debt to Sesame Street that, you wouldn't even think about until you start doing the backtracing.
Yeah.
So well said.
Yeah.
David. I mean, we say this a lot, like, obviously we're an independent film production,
Yeah.
We don't work for Sesame Street, but I will tell you that we have to take care of this stuff in our society. They're a nonprofit doing incredible work around the world for the betterment of children. And that without funding, without support, that can't happen, and so we have to help with those things. It is our obligation in our society to support the things that are doing good in the world. And so I think you make a great point with that. And I think, and we can't take it for granted, because as soon as we start taking it for granted, it's when it goes away.
Yeah.
Right. And then we're like, how did that happen? Well, it happened because we didn't do enough.
Because we didn't remember. We didn't have the history. And I think that's the other part that.
But we also have to remember, we all have a personal responsibility.
Yeah.
It is not someone else's job. It is our job individually to contribute to a better society for ourselves and for our kids. And so, and part of that is supporting the things that we know are doing that kind of work. If we're not able to do it ourselves, which I know, most of us aren't, we feel very fortunate that we got to do this film and that we have been able to tell this story. It took a long time to do it. And we were very intentional ourselves about the message that we wanted to have. But, it's not easy.
Yeah.
But it's also very for us as filmmakers, it's incredibly gratifying to be able to have an idea, something that you think is going to be valuable and relevant in the world, and not only to reignite the imagination of people around something that we all have a common connection with, but, also to put something out into the world that is the vision that you had. We feel incredibly grateful that we're able to have the film at Hot Docs and have everybody, essentially see it together and have that combined experience is, for filmmaker, that's the game. That's the whole thing. So that we can have a new story to tell.
And we got to watch some incredibly fun footage too.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
A Muppet rabbit hole, as I like to call it. Lost a whole day of like, wait, what happened? I was looking for one piece of footage and I ended up on like my 40th like
10 hours later, did we get the clip we wanted? No.
No, I totally didn't. But
Another
it doesn't matter. I had a
lost.
good day.
Well, and I mean, that's the unique thing about this business, because I mean, no matter what angle we're working it from, we come to it as fans first. And I mean, I've got to ask you guys, it's a silly question, but I always like to ask it. What was it that sort of got you into this business? Was it a specific story, or was there sort of a moment in your life that you sort of the light bulb went off and like, I want to do this? Like, tell me the craft's origin story, as it were.
Well, for me, I was an illustration major. I had always wanted to do something in the arts, and I started a production company which did a lot of animation, and that sort of got me into doing documentary filmmaking. But I mean, a lot of it honestly was truly around the Muppets. It's like, I really love the Muppet Show. I really loved Sesame Street, Fraggle Rock. I loved this world building that had happened, and I didn't even know what it was at the time. I just knew that there were these really unique places that were on television that I loved, and that sort of led me to become sort of the storyteller that I am today, and to create these worlds. And we have publishing that we're doing in with Boom Studios, and comic books and graphic novels and kids graphic novels, and all the different ways that you can tell a story. That's really how I got into the world.
But because you need to have a day job, because this stuff doesn't come easy.
Or free.
Right?
Yeah, or
free. Actually, Trevor and I met doing production work. So we were doing production work we're doing like what you call industrial. So we're doing a lot of stuff in the corporate arena around production. And that's how we met and got together. And then, we started doing a lot of these things, around our trying to create the intention of what we ultimately wanted to do. In addition to that industrial work, it's like, let's put something of ourselves out in the world. We're doing this for other people, but let's really put some focus on to doing things that we want to do or put forth in the world. And, and Trevor was really, for me, very like the one who was like, we got to do this. Like he was, very much the architect and the one who, kind of, I always say he got me when I was pregnant to say we should work together, because we because we both came into.
I kept trying. He
got me in a weekend state and said, I was like exhausted. I was like, okay, fine, let's create this company, let's do it. We joke about that all the time, but it was true. It was like it was his vision around taking this risk to create this company and to really put things out there in the world that we thought were important or entertaining, and experiment with it. And but it's part of the road that got us where we are.
Yeah, but I think part of it is that producing is unique in the fact that each different, if you're a music producer, or you're an entertainment producer, or you're, do corporate, industrials, producing, still producing. It's all the same. Yeah. The work is the same. The terminology and the fun level of it, and what you get to play with, and the people you get to work with, that changes. But, communicating with people, telling stories, coming up with ideas, putting teams together that can execute those ideas, that's all the same. And Ellen is the best at that, hands down, across the board. So it was a long journey of me constantly asking, we can work together. I think we can work together. And there was a lot of that.
We're already married. We have a kid on the way. Do we really want to do that?
Do we have to spend that much time together? And I said, yes, we do have to spend that much time together.
And it's worked.
She still likes me, which is a plus.
I do.
This is a good thing.
It's a win.
I do. I love him. And we work well together.
We really do.
We are a good foil for each other too. Like we have this joke all the time that we would, if we were to rename our production company now, we would call it Risk and Reason.
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate description.
But we complement each other.
Comes in handy.
Now, I mean, just to put a bow on this, I think something that I really appreciate not just about your film, but I think about the legacy of Sesame Street is sort of that fearlessness to just create. And at least from my perspective, especially in the media landscape these days, that feels like the formula to sort of survive and sort of make sure that you rise to the top, just to not be afraid to put it out there and see what happens. I'm kind of curious from your perspective, like, is that sort of the mantra that you try to use just going forward every day? Like, let's just do it and see what happens. Like, fingers crossed.
The only way we know how to operate, David, honestly, because, we don't come from, we're not working for a studio, we didn't come with those.
My dad was not like an incredibly storied, director that did all these movies, and I just sort of fell into it. I mean, it's.
I think we have a good sense of business, and we have a strong sense of self, and we have a great partnership, and
But again, it is about the work.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that
we have confidence in the work.
Yeah, and we've done it well, because I think it's about making things, and if you don't finish something, you're never going to get it out into the world, and nobody's ever going to see it. And I think the industry in general is a grinder, and it separates people that can't complete work, or, from the people that do. And I think that's, when I talk to student filmmakers or people that are just starting in the industry, it's like, don't wait for permission. Because you may not get it. Just make it. There's so many tools that are out there that can help now that I never had when I first started doing any of this kind of work. And it's so easy now to do something. And if you can be bold and be charismatic and find a story that works, tell it, because then people will see you, and then they'll respond, and then you can make the next one, and then you can make the next one, and then after that you'll make the one you really want to make.
Yeah.
Like,
And don't give up. I mean, I think that's, this film took us 5.5 years. If we had given up, we wouldn't be here today talking to you,
It's true.
and so we're really grateful that we have this opportunity and that we were able to finish the film, and we're super excited to be premiering in Canada and at Hot Docs. And what a wonderful ride it's been, and it
Yeah.
wouldn't have happened if we had not just kept pushing forward.
All right, last one. In any creative endeavor, if it's finished or if it has finished, at some point you have to let it go. But I'm curious: is this one you're going to be able to let this one go, or was this one that will stick with you for a while at the very least?
I think this one's going to stay because it's not our only film. It will not be our only film. There's lots more stories to tell, but I'm on record in other interviews as saying that, the halls of Sesame Workshop are some of my most favorite professional places to be. They are a wonderful group of people, and telling this story, we're telling the origin story of something that has touched millions and millions and millions of people for 5 decades, literally around the world. And that is a very special project. And that's not one that, goes away, I don't think, ever.
Well said.
Well, and you know what? I think that's a great note to end on. And thank you so much for creating something that has meaning and legacy, and that will be sort of a tool for people 50 years from now looking back on Sesame.
We truly hope so.
I really think it'll stand the test of time. And thank you
Thank
both
you.
for the time. And this was a lot of fun. Congratulations again on the film.
Thank you,
Thank
Dave.
you
We really
so
appreciate
much.
it.
All right.
All right.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
guys. Bye.
Bye.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.